The Zavod Graveyard Shift map has been a lot of fun for me in recent weeks, and running as a gunner on hardcore mode is one of the most enjoyable things that I've actually done when I'm in the secondary seat in an armoured vehicle. This is because your main machine gun will turn into an almost godlike weapon against enemy infantry. You will wreck them from mid to long ranges, which is ridiculous because it's absolutely useless on the normal game mode when you're trying to shoot someone off a tower and your driver won't stay still. You can rarely line up a shot unless you get a lucky headshot on an enemy. But on the hardcore mode, especially with the thermal optics being so overpowered on the night map, you can destroy them. As you can see in the background, I'm getting maybe 1 or 2 hits and taking them down every single time, and it's awesome for the driver as well because it means that they rarely have to worry about being sneaked up on with C4. You still have the verticality problems on Zavod, especially with the central flags, which you have to be mindful of if you're in an armoured vehicle, but in terms of playing on the edge of a map and worrying about snipers sneaking up on you, you don't really have to worry about it too much. Still be wary of it, but it's not as big a problem. So a couple of tips that I would recommend if you are choosing to gun for a mate or you're choosing to just gun on a public server, then what I would recommend doing is running with the thermal optics on the night map. It is so beneficial doing this, and you'll definitely realise this after just doing it once. It's just so much better than running with the zoom. Also make sure that you are watching out for people, as I said before, with RPGs especially behind you, or C4 coming off buildings above you. Be mindful of spawn points. You can get to know them on most flags just by playing a couple of games and just working out where the majority of enemies are coming from. It's usually just to the side of a flag. Also bear in mind that if you have people in that position, friendly people, they're not going to be coming from that direction, they'll come from a different direction. There's also not much point in you shooting in the same place that your driver's shooting. Although you do see me doing it at some points in the background, that's not because I'm not keeping an eye on what's behind me, it's because I know there's nothing behind me. We have the flag capped, so I can just help them take down anything that's in front at the time. Also checking your big map as much as you can and keeping an eye on your little map if you're not playing on hardcore, just so you can tell your driver if you're on comms or just in the chat. Make sure they're in your squad, by the way. Make sure you tell them where people are coming from and what they can do in order to flank or maybe get an advantage on an enemy piece of armour. Running as an engineer is a must, and as you see in this game, my driver is running as a medic because it is hardcore, and that's the best way of keeping your gunner alive. Remember that you can only take a few shots before you're down to very, very minimal health, and there's no point in being on minimal health as a gunner because you get out, the chances are splash damage from an RPG or something will eventually hit you, and then you'll have to respawn, and by that time, you could already be dead. Also running with smoke grenades or flares, or even the flashbang since it has been nerfed, but even a flashbang can be beneficial as a gunner. If you're in a situation where there's literally nothing you can do and all you're doing is repping, throwing down a smoke grenade, especially with the recent buff on it, or a flare which will blind anyone using a thermal scope, especially a tank, you can really benefit the driver as long as he's doing most of the work with either a canister shell or the 25 mils on infantry and using a tow missile on anybody who is in an armoured vehicle. This can be a really good combo to use, and it's not something that I've seen used a huge amount on the night map so far. Something else I encountered the other day was a load of mines placed in the road. I think it was 2 mines and a slam that had been placed by an engineer or a pair of engineers, and it had a couple of flares on top of it. Now in the LAV I couldn't see it for the life of me. Luckily it had been spotted by a friendly, but I couldn't see the mines. And that is something that you could really employ if you're trying to take down an enemy piece of armour. Putting a couple of mines down and then chucking a flare on top. You can't see it with the thermal scope, you can't see the mines. So maybe that's something that you could look at doing. If you're maybe in the 3rd seat of an LAV, you're running as a crew of 3 or 4, you could get a couple of them to run with mines as well as repair tools. I wouldn't really recommend running without an RPG, but it's something cool that you can try and switch up between, maybe make the game a little more interesting and trying to catch out an enemy tank who is not wary of this tactic. Thanks again for watching. If you did enjoy, please leave a like. You can check out other videos at the end. I've put the links in the description. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.